My parents always favored my golden sister, and when she lied and blamed me of theft, they disowned me. But 5 years later, we reunited at Grandma's Christmas dinner, and they still trash me in front of everyone. People will always remember E for your sleazy act. As I unwrapped the gift from Grandma, their face went pale, and they realized they messed up big time by siding with my sister. I was raised in what most people would describe as a typical middle-class household. 2 parents, a younger sister, and a small suburban home. To outsiders, we seem like a picture-perfect family. But anyone close to us would tell you there was always tension between my parents and me. The reason was simple. They adored my younger sister, Emma, and I was always the afterthought. But that wasn't always the case. I remember when we were kids, my parents were very loving and caring to both Emma and me. They showered us with affection. And why wouldn't they? We were a pretty smart pair, excelling at whatever came our way. We shared that golden period where nothing seemed to divide us. We were both enrolled in piano lessons, art classes, and gymnastics, and our parents were equally proud of us. I never felt any tension back then, no subtle preference for one of us over the other. But things changed when I hit 6th grade. It started with just one test. It wasn't even a particularly important one, but I got a bad grade. The first bad grade of my life. But it was enough for my parents to begin seeing me differently. I could tell something had shifted when my mother wouldn't look at me the same way she did Emma when she brought home another perfect score. The compliments they had once given me started to feel obligatory. While Emma's successes were celebrated with genuine pride, suddenly I was the loose string that could come undone at any moment. And Emma was the one who could do no wrong. At first I thought it was just a phase. Maybe I was being too sensitive, but it became impossible to ignore. If I made a mistake, no matter how small, it was held against me. If Emma made a mistake, it was brushed off. Or worse, excused. She's just having an off day, my father would say. While for me it was always, why can't you be more like Emma? That phrase haunted me throughout my teenage years. As we grew older, Emma blossomed into everything my parents had ever wanted in a daughter. She was smart, popular, and outgoing. She was the class president, the homecoming queen, the girl everyone liked. I, on the other hand, became more introverted, and I kept to myself, studied hard, and excelled in my own way. But it was never enough to compete with Emma, and soon enough, I stopped trying. By the time we were in high school, the differences in how we were treated had become glaringly obvious. Emma always got new clothes, her own car, and all the attention. When she needed help with homework, our parents would sit with her for hours, making sure she understood every detail. If I asked for help, it was either too late in the evening or they'd brush me off, telling me to figure it out on my own. They had started treating me like an adult while coddling Emma like a princess. I learned early that if I wanted something, I'd have to work for it, while Emma had everything handed to her on a silver platter. Despite the imbalance in treatment, I tried to keep a relationship with Emma. After all, she was my sister and I loved her. But it became harder and harder to ignore her growing sense of entitlement. She seemed to revel in the attention, knowing she could get away with anything. It wasn't just my parents who adored her. Our friends, teachers, even strangers were captivated by her charm. She was the golden girl, and I was the shadow in the background. I began to wonder if anyone really saw me for who I was, or if I was just Emma's sister. The turning point came one summer after I graduated from high school. I had been accepted to a decent college on a partial scholarship, and I was excited to finally get out of the house and start fresh. I thought maybe with some distance, my relationship with my parents would improve and that they would finally miss me when I was gone. I thought wrong. It was around this time that Emma started dating a boy named Jake, the star quarterback of our high school football team. He was handsome, popular, and came from a wealthy family. My parents loved him, of course. They treated him like the son they never had. Every weekend, Jake was over at our house, and my parents would cook elaborate dinners just to impress him. It was clear they already envisioned a future where Emma and Jake would get married, settle down, and give them the perfect grandchildren. Meanwhile, I was struggling to get through my first semester of college, working part-time to cover the costs. My scholarship didn't cover everything, so I had to work part-time to make ends meet. Meanwhile, Emma and Jake were living the dream, attending dinners at my parents' house. vacationing at the beach house every weekend, and being treated like future royalty. Every time I called home, hoping to share a small achievement or ask for support, my parents seemed more distant and uninterested. I was nothing more than a footnote in the story they built around Emma and Jake. Then, one day, I got an unexpected call from my mom. "Can you come home next weekend? We need to talk." I was surprised and, for a brief moment, hopeful. Maybe they were finally realizing how much they had neglected me. Maybe this was my chance to make things right. When I arrived, the house looked the same, but something felt different. There was a coldness in the air, a tension I couldn't quite understand. They asked me to sit at the dining table, where Emma and Jake were already waiting. So, my mom began, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Jake proposed to Emma. I sat there, stunned for a moment, trying to process the news. Of course, it was inevitable. But what really hit me was what came next. "We think it would be best if you didn't come to the wedding," my dad said, as if offering friendly advice. "We don't want you to feel uncomfortable." It was a punch I never saw coming. They didn't even bother to sugarcoat it. I wasn't just an unwanted guest. They wanted me out of the most important event in Emma's life entirely. The reason was obvious. I didn't fit into the perfect picture they wanted to present to the world. Emma smiled triumphantly. Jake looked at me with an expression that said, "This was never about you." It was as if they had all conspired to erase me from the family narrative, as if I had never existed. Slowly, I stood up, swallowing the rage that threatened to spill over. "You don't want me at the wedding?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. "Perfect. Don't worry. You won't have to see me ever again." My mom tried to say something, but I was already heading for the door. I left without looking back, knowing that this was the end. They had pushed me away for so long that in that moment, I realized there was no point in trying anymore. The following years were lonely, but liberating. I managed to finish college despite the challenges and found a decent job. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine, and I was proud. I cut ties with my parents and Emma, leaving the past behind. They had made their choice, and I made mine, to move forward without them. Then, one day, I got an unexpected message. It was a photo of Emma and Jake in front of a mansion, captioned, "Our new home." A pang of bitterness hit me, but it was quickly replaced by a cynical laugh. Of course, they were living the perfect life while I struggled to pay rent in a tiny apartment. What started as a casual glance turned into a habit. I found myself following every update on their lives through social media. They had it all: luxury vacations, fancy dinners, and, of course, the wedding of their dreams. It seemed like nothing could ever go wrong for Emma. Until it did. A few weeks later, I received a message from my uncle. "Did you hear about Jake?" I hadn't, and what followed hit me harder than I expected. Jake had cheated on Emma and filed for divorce. The news spread quickly, and soon everyone in the family was talking about the breakup. Emma, the golden child, the perfect daughter, had fallen from grace. In the middle of the chaos, I got an unexpected call from my mom. She wanted to meet. "We need to talk," she said, her voice weary. I knew that this wasn't about regret or sincere apologies. It was desperation. We met at a cafe near my place. She looked older, worn out by the years and the recent fallout. "Emma is going through a hard time," she began. "We need you. We need the family to come together again." A wave of fury washed over me. After everything they had done, now they wanted me back to fill the void Emma had left? After discarding me like I didn't matter? I gave her a cold smile. "You spent years telling me I wasn't good enough. And now that your princess has fallen, you want me to pick up the pieces? Sorry, but you made your choice a long time ago." She tried to argue, but I stood up, leaving some cash on the table for the coffee. "I don't need you. I never did. And now, you finally see that you have no power over me anymore." I walked away with my head held high, feeling a sense of justice. For the first time, they were facing the consequences of their choices, and I was free. That conversation at the cafe was the final chapter of a story I had tried to rewrite for so long. In that moment, I realized I didn't need them anymore. It was freeing to know I no longer had to chase approval from people who had never truly seen me. I walked out of there lighter, knowing it was time to rebuild my life for me. The years that followed weren't easy, but slowly, I began to build the life I had always wanted. I worked hard, took jobs others would consider beneath them, but every small victory felt different because it was mine. I wasn't competing with anyone anymore, just myself. Eventually, I switched jobs and found a better opportunity at a startup. The work was demanding, but I felt valued. My boss believed in me, and for the first time, I was surrounded by people who appreciated my effort without comparing me to anyone else. My financial situation improved, and I finally moved out of my cramped apartment into a more spacious place. In time, I was promoted, the startup grew, and I grew along with it. What began as an entry-level role evolved into a leadership position. That's when I decided to pursue a long-held dream, starting my own business. I used my savings to launch a small consulting firm. At first, it was challenging to manage everything, but soon clients began rolling in, and the business took off. Life finally made sense. I had built something with my own hands, without relying on anyone. Every achievement, no matter how small, felt more rewarding than any praise I had never received from my family. Then one day, fate decided to cross our paths again. I was attending a business conference in another city, presenting a project for my firm. At the end of the event, as I chatted with a group of investors, I heard a familiar voice. I turned around and saw Emma standing by the entrance. She looked different, not the bright, confident girl I once knew. There was something broken about her, as if the mask she wore had finally fallen. When our eyes met, she hesitated for a moment before approaching me cautiously, as if unsure whether I would even speak to her. "Hey," she said with a weak smile. "I didn't expect to see you here." I gave a polite nod, keeping my expression neutral. The world's full of surprises. Emma fidgeted nervously with the strap of her purse. "I heard about your business. It's doing really well." "It is," I replied, offering nothing more. There was an awkward silence before she finally spoke again. "Things haven't been easy since Jake and I divorced." I knew this wasn't just a coincidence. Emma wasn't there by accident. She wanted something. Maybe it was an apology, maybe some kind of reconciliation. But at that moment, I didn't feel angry. I didn't even resent her anymore. All I felt was indifference. "I know," I said calmly, "and I'm sorry things have been hard for you." She blinked, surprised by my response. Maybe she expected me to lash out or rub her failures in her face. But I didn't need to. My success was the best revenge. Not because I had beaten her, but because I no longer cared. Emma started to say something else, perhaps an apology, but I gently cut her off. "It's all in the past, Emma. I'm doing well now, and I hope you find your way too." She looked at me, stunned, but eventually nodded. "Thank you," she whispered, smaller than I had ever seen her. We parted ways right there, without drama, without grand gestures. It was a quiet end to something that had once consumed me entirely. A few months later, I received a message from my parents. It was short, a tentative attempt to reconnect. They said they were sorry and wanted to see me, to talk. For the first time, I didn't feel anxious reading their words. There was no urgency to respond because I finally understood I didn't need their validation anymore. It took me days to decide what to do. In the end, I sent a brief reply. "I forgive you, but my life is complete as it is. I hope you find peace." It wasn't cruel. It was honest. I didn't need them, and more importantly, I didn't need their love to be happy. Today, my business is thriving. I have a talented team and an office in one of the best parts of the city. I work with clients who believe in me, and I value every success I've earned. For the first time in my life, I'm seen for who I am, not as Emma's brother, not as the disappointing son, just as myself. And the best part? I see myself. It no longer matters whether my family recognizes me or not, because I finally do. If my parents or Emma find peace one day, I hope they do it far away from me. Not because I hold a grudge, but because there's nothing more liberating than moving forward without looking back. And finally, I am free.